We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
All right, everybody. We have a return guest on the show today with me. It is Fern. It's best hour of their day. Nick, welcome back, brother.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
I was trying to think of what we were going to title this podcast, and I think what we will title is I listened to a podcast and then I bought a gym.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Which is, for the record, not what we're recommending, but I do want to walk through. So when I was also trying to go back and look at, like, this was over a year ago, easily.
Yeah.
It
was July 8th. I believe it was July 8th.
So it was just under a year ago. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been tracking, so like almost 200 episodes. We've been tracking about 200 a year. So a lot has happened. Well, just a lot in the world, much less a lot in your life with acquiring an affiliate. But when we talked about that, you were thinking about it. I believe my advice was don't do it.
Yeah, kind of.
It was kind of don't do it. But yeah, you went ahead and you did what a lot of people do, which is like, hey, this is something I'm super passionate about and I'm going to make the plunge, and you purchased an affiliate. So tell us kind of how that went down.
So local affiliate, actually the one that I was coaching at before COVID started falling on hard times around, say, January of 21. So they made it almost all the way through the COVID crap, but it was just becoming too much to handle. And they had to close their doors at the end of January. And we caught word of it from one of the owners, and he kind of asked if we'd be interested, myself, and I had my girlfriend in with this and another friend of ours. And we were like, yeah, we're interested. Talk to us, And I took about 2 weeks, and we were able to make a deal to purchase the remaining assets and kind of what was left of the place. And then we opened back up in March of 2021.
Okay. So 4 partners, is that correct?
Yeah, 4 partners officially. Yep.
Got it. And then without getting into some of the specifics there, was it just like complete loss of member base? Is that what kind of forced them over the edge?
Yeah, they were down on membership, and they were about to lose money for the first time. They opened in 2018, and they were about to lose money for the first time. I think so. There were 2 owners, and one of the owners got a little bit scared by that, and she bailed, and then we kind of bought in on her portion.
Oh, so they sold before they lost money?
They did lose money in January, and then February kind of lost money just because the doors weren't open necessarily. Got it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm a sucker, man. I lost tons of money before.
They did well. They did well until then. Yeah.
Right. So that's a complete shutdown for at least was it like 2? What was it, 2 or 3?
About 2 weeks we were shut down, and then once we got our foot in the door again, we reopened kind of like speakeasy style, like keep it on the down low. We're not officially open, but if you want to come work out, we were trying to hold on to as many members as we could. Right. We had a WhatsApp group, get on the WhatsApp, inviting people there, and hey, we're going to be there this time at this day, that kind of stuff. I
can appreciate the secret squirrel nature of that. Put on an encrypted text thread that nobody can follow. Okay, so do you mind if, when you assumed the gym, right? Because we've already established this is basically was an asset purchase. Roughly, what was the membership base at?
They were at 70 in January, but as soon as it was announced that the doors were closed, it dropped down to about 30. So people went elsewhere basically right away.
Okay. And so you guys picked that up, and obviously that's obviously a little sketch as a new owner, right? Like, it's not one of these things you're like, buy at the dip, and I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it's not the best idea. So this right, like, it's like this scenario is like not new, right? So somebody wants to shut down a gym, somebody wants to buy it. What I do think is intriguing is the next part, which is, okay, we did it. And for the record, we have not worked with Nick. Like he is not an affiliate U person. Like we have literally just chatted via DM and, and he listens to the podcast. He came on previously and I was like, well, dude, let's talk about it. Like, because you had said, hey, I've been following and doing a lot of things you guys talk about and it's working. But I kind of want to talk about like your experience, not necessarily like everybody knows pretty much what we talk about, but how did you go about identifying, because this is always the riddles, like, what do we do? Okay, so we bought this thing. What's the first thing that we do? What was it that you guys identified was the first thing that needed to be addressed?
Just getting word of mouth out there to everybody and trying to get as many people back as we could before they got too locked in at another gym or before they decided they liked another gym more.
And then how many of them did you get back?
So we are up to 72, I think, this morning when I checked. So we got a good bit back.
So it sounds like that's a combination of some new folks and some old ones.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's 40 people. And, so that's a really big deal. So when you were reaching out to people, what's that communication look like for you guys? Are you just like, hey, we opened a gym, come on back. Fitness is fun.
We just like touch base, like, hey man, what have you been up to? Haven't seen you in a while. And then whenever they touch back with us, we'd be like, just wanted to let you know we're reopening the gym. We'd love to have you on board if you want to be a part of it. Come on down, come be a part of it. And it worked for a lot of people. So
yeah, that was my question: is what was the general feedback as you started sending out this communication to people?
Almost everybody was excited because I was a previous coach and they knew me. So I had a relationship with these people. And one of the other owners was also a coach before too. So we had a very good relationship and they always liked us. I mean, I'm maybe speaking too highly of ourselves, but
people like me. It's fine.
Right. People like me. Right. But I think that had a big part to do with it. And my girlfriend also was a very key member in the gym. She is now a coach as well, but she wasn't before, but everybody knew us. We had a good reputation. They knew us. It really worked out in our favor.
It's more important than people think for that to be the case. I'm working with a couple of affiliate owners who kind of same scenario, coach purchased it, but lots of people in the gym are big fans. And it's always something I tell people. It's kind of I don't want to say it's like a perfect scenario because it's definitely not a perfect scenario, meaning like buying something that's struggling and then trying to revive it. What I'm referring to is there's kind of like it's kind of like, have you ever been to the airport when like somebody right in front of you goes and they piss off the flight attendant or the lady working at the front desk? And then, so you quickly realize like, cool, if I'm just nice to this person when I get up there, they'll probably give me what I'm asking for. It's kind of like that, which is like, okay, there was some sort of, whatever feeling, and not to say that the previous affiliate owners did anything wrong, but like there's some sort of ill feeling about that. Like, but I have some good, kind of good equity with these folks. I'm like, use it.
Yeah, without a doubt. That was a big thing. It was more like just like a disconnect. The previous owner became a little bit disconnected with the membership and and I know it's not that she didn't care. She definitely did care, but people perceive it as, well, you don't care. You're not talking to me as much. You're not around as much. You don't care. Why am I giving you my, it's expensive for a CrossFit membership. Why am I paying you? I could go anywhere else.
It's funny. We just recorded a podcast about retention. And that was one of the pieces of that is just like quite literally what you just said, which is people think that like saying I care. And again, I would agree with you. I believe she did care. Mm-hmm. It's not enough. Right. Like I care is not enough. I care does not foot the bill on that one.
Right.
So in knowing that, like, was there a strategy there, or was it just kind of like, fuck it, let's just reach out to people and see what we can do, or was there kind of some strategy involved there with like, hey, let's reach out to these folks and then come over here and talk to these folks and then did you do any deals for people to come back?
We actually didn't even have to. A lot of the people we reached out to, a lot of them were there from the beginning and they were so eager to come back. They were so heartbroken when the place officially shut down that they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. I never thought it would be back. And it happened so quick and they were just quickly on board. We didn't have to cut any deals or anything like that. I mean, so we were lucky in that regard.
That's really cool. So how much are you guys in the affiliate at this point between the four of you?
Between the four of us, A good bit, not all the time. Part of our strategy was I took people who were already in the affiliate as members who I knew were interested in becoming coaches, and I encouraged them to get their L1s, and they did. So now we're sitting on like 8 coaches or something like that. So we've got a good mix, and they're all but our kids coach. Our kids coach is a newbie to the gym, but all our other coaches are within my community, which was very important to me. I really wanted to hire from within with coaches to make sure they fit with our community and everybody liked them. And it's been a beautiful synergy with all of that, because they were all in-house people. They all had a reputation with these people. So that also helped. When it was like, we're coming back and these are your new coaches, everybody was like, oh, this is great. You know, like, it's been very well received.
That's definitely, so I'm not in the camp of all the coaches got to come out of the community, but there's definitely some strategy involved with familiar faces that people are comfortable with in order to kind of keep or kind of bring back that culture that people want. And there's probably a degree of nostalgia there involved with that as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a very smart move on your part. So nice job there. So past that, then what's the next thing you guys identify that you want, that you're just like, hey, this is the next kind of hill that we've got to climb with regard to, we bought this affiliate, we got to get it, or we have to get it like off of life support and get it moving. What's the next thing?
So, I mean, just kind of in general became like the forward facing stuff. The place was getting a little dirty. The equipment was getting a little run down. We needed to show the new, or the members, like, hey, we're here to reinvest and to make it good again. So we got the place like deep cleaned right away, and we've been very diligent about keeping it very clean. We upgraded some of the equipment what we could afford to right away, and we're constantly trying to do that, of course. But that became more of a less of a, you know, texting and reaching out to people, and more of a look at what we're actually doing now, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, it's important for affiliate owners and coaches, everybody to know people need to physically see where their money goes. And that can be $500 at a time. It could be $20 at a time. It could be $10,000 at a time. But the point is, if you're consistently showing and you're consistently upgrading things or doing projects around the gym, this is when you can avoid a lot of this. Well, what am I doing here? Like, these guys are making, you know, like as Jay like to say, they're doing the member math, and they see, you know, 70 members at, you know, at $200 a whack or whatever people are charging. Well, this is how much money they're making. And you're like, well, you skipped all the bills, you know, you skipped any debt incurred to purchase the thing. You skipped a whole lot of things. And this is the way you can avoid all of that to a large degree, which is like reinvest, whether it's, you know, a lot of time or a lot of money or a little bit of both or a lot of both. But it needs to be consistent all the time. So continue to do that, and I would imagine that it would serve you guys well. And that's one of the, I've seen some people skip that part when they purchase an affiliate. I'm like, dude, paintbrush, get to work. Yeah, for sure. And like stuff like, you could tell like the floors had been like mopped constantly and never ran the Zamboni, and it just had this like haze on it, and like simple stuff like that. You walk in, you could see it. It just didn't look like there was much pride being taken in the space. So we had to kind of reverse that. So let's get into a little bit deeper question here. So you're there, you guys are, what is it? So almost 4 months. 4 months. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what's the vision? What do you guys want to happen? So and we skipped everything. Tell everybody your affiliate name. We skipped right over that. So I'm a shitty host. we're CrossFit Pine Creek out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know, like I said, established 2018, reestablished in 2021, basically. So and you guys are going to keep the affiliate name? Yeah, that was another thing we wrestled with. Should we keep it? Should we not? And it was kind of decided that it wasn't tarnished enough to not keep it. So we kept it, and I'm glad we did. Good. Yeah. No, I mean, that didn't sound like they did anything wrong. It just sounded kind of like one of these things where it was kind of like dying a little bit. Yeah. And it didn't have like really a negative association with it. It just wasn't, you know, glowing essentially. So that's so what is it that you guys, let's fast forward out a year or even 3 years. Now, what are you kind of putting your crosshairs on with the affiliate? So we are trying to grow the affiliate in every way, shape, and form. We are all part-timers there, and we would love for it at some point to be able to support one person, then two person, then three, then four, as far as being able to migrate out of our normal
jobs and into that as a full-time thing is really what the overall goal is. Even if that means getting a bigger space at some point, kind of whatever it takes. We'll see where we can go with it.
Don't do that. That's my first piece of advice. Stay where you're at, hold what you got, burst out of the seams, then grow. I've seen way too many people do that, and they've robbed themselves of the ability to actually grow. So everybody thinks space equals growth, and it doesn't. Right. Manpower in this business, manpower equals growth. I got to have more coaches. I got to have better consistency. I got to have admin. I got to have a lot of these things that would lend itself to, whatever anybody would like to imagine in their mind is like high volume intake of clients. And high volume, let's just go with something reasonable. Let's go high volume. Let's say 20 people a month. Right? That most CrossFit gyms would consider that very high volume. Yeah. So you need staff for that, right? If you're gonna have any sort of reasonable, even one session type of onboarding, like you're gonna need like pretty much at least when I say part-time, I mean like they literally 50-50 between this and their other job. Like that's at the bare minimum you're gonna need for that. And typically I've seen people expand their space, take that revenue that they could have allocated to a person, and then never get it back. And they just stuck in the rat race of like, well, I got more space and I just can't fill it. Right. Like you don't have people to facilitate the growth. So stay there as long as possible. It would be my recommendation, unless the place is a huge dump and you're getting screwed over on the lease or something like that. But no, not really. We picked up the lease deal where it was. So we only have 3 years left on it. So we got lucky. I didn't have to lock into a 5-year lease. That was nice. In a 3-year deal. So we're kind of going to take that 3 years before we would even consider a bigger place. So we got a little bit of time to figure that out, I guess. Was that a brand new lease, or was it a sublease from the previous owner? So because one of the owners stayed with us, he just kind of the lease, the guy who just owns the building. Intact. Yep. He just kept it as is, basically. So there was no kind of rewriting of the lease or anything like that. It's just, okay. All right. Well, that's not just change the names. Okay. So that's so that eliminates some problems. There are some problems, and I've personally gone through this, where if you're going to do that, and if you're going to purchase a gym, like do everything humanly possible to have a full assumption of lease rather than sublet under the other person. Yeah. The landlord wants to do that because they want to have 2 people that they can hold liable in this scenario in case shit falls through. So just a little nugget for people out there. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So then I'm going to put you on the spot here, because everybody says this. What is the plan for growth? The plan for growth right now is to try to, in our opinion, and I've heard it even on your guys' podcast, it's going to come more from like within and spreading word of mouth within our members, and us doing a good job of retaining, and then having people being excited to be there. And then they tell their friend or family member. We do a little bit of Facebook advertising, and like we'll sponsor a post on Instagram, but we all know that's not going to get us, that's not going to really move the needle too much for us. It's going to be that word of mouth. And we have our referral program, and we've been pumping that every, say, 2-3 months. We'll kind of advertise it heavy, then we'll let it settle for a little bit. And we're like, so July again, we're advertising it again. We came up with a different deal than we had in the last one. We're doing the community days. We're teaming up with other gyms to do like a community throwdown, just trying to get ourselves out there, our name out there, stay relevant, and try to kind of build from within, which is kind of how the gym was built to begin with when it first opened. That's really cool. I wouldn't even waste your money on the boosts or the posts and stuff like that. It's just you're just lighting money on fire. And if my contention is always this: if you're spending, let's call it $200 to $300 a month, number one, you're not getting any sort of significant reach off of that. Typically, I'm like, take $200 to $300 a month and do a member raffle giveaway of some sort. Like, take that $300 instead of burning it and giving it to Mark Zuckerberg. Give it back to the community. Like, buy everybody a cup of Starbucks, or give away a Noble gift card or some shit like that. Like, don't put it into Facebook, Instagram machine, because it's probably not built in the back end correctly. You don't know how to look at the analytics, and I'm like, we boosted and a bunch of people saw it. And I'm like, that's not what paid ads are for. They are for conversion, whether immediate or long-term. And probably none of those things is built that way. So, that's what I would do, is I would just take that, reallocate it, and just figure out like, what could we do with this that I would give it directly back to the member base. That will yield 9 times out of 10. Like people will do that. Like we just had, so I'm pretty bullish about a lot of this stuff because it works, right? And everybody's just like, no, you got to run Facebook. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, do a really good job on the front end. Like, then I've talked, like, we just had it happen again this week where another woman who was a referral came in, and then within 1 week, she's like, I'm bringing you somebody else.
Yeah. That's
right.
awesome.
Like, that's just, that's not like, we're not like magicians, right? Like there's nothing, unique about what we do. It's not entirely true, but like with the point with like, we're just doing the simple things really well. We're trying to do the simple things really well. It's just like making sure people have a good experience, that we take care of them, that we create awareness around the fact that there is a referral program, because that person got a referral and then she's going to go ahead and turn around and use it again after that. And that's 3 people off of 1, right? So like, these are the things that help you grow the community, but it starts with the front end, which is what we were talking about when we were recording the podcast today, is just like understanding how retention works. And retention is draped over everything. Retention is not this thing that happens on the back end. It's literally starts on the front end. So with regard to that, do you have a goal for the end of 2021?
For the end of 2021, we've actually kind of already hit our goal. We just really wanted to mostly break even just for our first kind of year, and we've already hit that. So we got to kind of reevaluate and maybe shoot a little higher. I would love to, like I said, get somebody on full time as opposed to just a part-time. We have a couple people kind of in the waiting that if I was able to give them the go ahead, hey, you could hop on full time, they would be right on board with that.
Right.
So that would be probably one of the next main goals would be to get a true full timer in there. Start with 1 and grow from there.
So I actually want to go back and we're going to do a little real-time coaching here, everybody. So when you hit your goal, which is like, hey, let's get back what we lost, not what you lost, but what was lost. So let's get back to kind of we'll call it the low water mark of like that 75 number. Yeah. We don't talk revenue, but if you're going to have these conversations, I always recommend that revenue be had in conjunction with, because it's not just about the members. Revenue is a real thing that we can't ignore. So let's just call it 75, and you say a little higher. And it's worth noting, if you guys hit it already, that's actually perfect. I would like to hit my 1 year goal at 6 months, and then I'm going to reevaluate and I'm going to establish another goal. So when you say a little higher, let's put it out there for the world, speak it into existence, like as Jay and I like to say. Specifically, what would you like a little higher to look like?
I'd like to get the membership closer to 100. To be honest, I don't know if over the next 6 months, if that's possible or not, but that's where I'd like to be.
Well, you did 40.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
And that's literally almost double what your number here is now. But the important part about this is, okay, so let's just call it 25. So you come up a little short here, 97. Okay, let's call it 25. Well, if I reverse engineer that, what do I need to do over the course of the next 6 months to get to 25? The easy math on there is 4.
Net 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Net 4. Right. So, which is okay. So if you come up net 3, again, who cares? It's still, I'm going to be coming up 18. Let's call it 20 by the end of the year. And you're at 92.
Yeah.
So then in this scenario, I'm like, okay, let's be very specific about this. And this goes back into the SMART goals, like make it specific. But now what you can start doing is crafting that strategic plan. Yeah. And in my opinion, everything should be viewed through that lens, which is like, hey, how can I make sure everybody stays and that we get more people? Right. It's not either or, right? I don't have to sacrifice one at the expense of the other. So then when you're looking at these community events, yes, I want to do things like get everybody together. But I think one of the key principles that everybody misses that is like, what's the, I don't like to use this term, but everybody will get like, what's the hook on this kind of retention tool, right? Because I can use a retention tool as a sales tool, right? And it actually feels way better that way, to be honest with you. It feels not sleazy that way for a lot of people who are kind of like new to the idea of sales. What would we pair with those things that would bring in other people during some of these community events or community day or the local competition? That I think is like one of the missing aspects of this idea of growth is like, yes, retention is a massive part of that because it's really hard to have growth without appropriate retention. Yeah. But then while focusing on retention, what can I sprinkle on top of that would lend itself to growth? That's where I would have you focus. if we were looking at this, like we would put some very specific things on the calendar, be like, listen, we're going to get 4. We're going to get 4 here. We're going to get 4 here. And we're going to get 4 here. The other 4, I'm just hoping those people are going to walk in, but those are going to be kind of the organic, like Google search. I like fitness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they'll just walk in, because very few gyms don't have 3 to 4 people pinging their website every month. We just fail to call them back. We're just like, every time I look at somebody's leads, I'm like, what do you mean you don't have leads? I'm looking at 9 right here that you have not run down. So have you guys thought about that at all?
Yes, we do track our leads. We do have our we have a dedicated one of the owners is dedicated to member communication specifically, because we view it as such an important thing. Like that's like the only thing. She's a coach as well, but we put that on her plate as it's very important. We want somebody to actually take the time to do that and make sure that that is being handled properly and promptly. If somebody reaches out, we want to get to them within an hour or 2 if we can. Even if it's one of our own members, we don't want to leave people feeling stranded. We take a lot of pride in our member communications.
So, what's your onboarding look like?
Our onboarding right now is we're doing 2 classes where we're teaching kind of the 9 foundational movements, and it's,
you know, how I feel about that.
I know. That's one thing we haven't had a chance to kind of go back and reevaluate.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
But yeah, and if I notice that they're really poor in one area, we'll kind of focus more on one than the other and touch on some of the other stuff just so they see it and just start to kind of get an idea.
Are you doing all of these one-on-one?
Yes, they are one-on-one. Unless multiple people join at the same time, then we'll try to lump them in.
This is an interesting one, and I think there's optimal, and I think that there's a bunch of stuff in the middle that falls in the practical bucket. And so we don't actually teach one method. What we do is we lay out a bunch of different scenarios, and the primary thing that we take into account is what is feasible based on manpower, going back to what we were referring to earlier, which is like, hey, listen, if you're coaching 25 classes a week, you're doing a couple PTs here and there, and you're going to do all the consults and the onboardings, right? Like even it was 2, let's just say you brought on, so you're going to do 25 classes a week, and you're going to throw in 2 consults and then another 4 trainings. So that's 30 hours a week. Anybody who's never coached 30 hours a week, it's not fun. I don't give a shit how much you like coaching. That is not fun. Like that is exhausting. And you're good for like, I don't know, a week and a half before your coaching becomes subpar.
Yeah.
So what we'll look at is like, what is feasible? And then we'll design the best variation based on what they have available, with a plan to evolve it over time. Like as the team grows, then we will morph it, right? But the point is, we'll just apply the same principles to every single different variation of that. It's just like the time allocated, so like one of my mentors in CrossFit, Joe Alexander, he's just like, listen, your ability to compress or expand information is really kind of what makes you a ninja in your craft. And if you need to compress it because you don't have a ton of team, well, then you're going to compress that onboarding, because it's necessary. As I get freed up, now I'm going to open it back up because it does provide a better experience. But just not to say that you couldn't do a good experience with one. We just don't believe it to be optimal is where we go with that. So that would be my next thing, is like, I would, obviously, if you need to do a price scrub on anything, like I would take a hard look at that, because that's an easy way to kind of get back some maybe lost revenue. But the second thing I would look at is like, what is the onboarding process? Because that's like the first hill that we cross over with regard to retention. Like, what does that experience look like for people that come through?
Yeah. And we kind of do take it case by case, because you're always going to have people maybe that move well and others that don't. And so, you can kind of figure that out pretty quickly, and it's kind of case by case with that. We've also added nutrition into the mix, because we want to raise that average, that ARM number quickly. And we feel like it's kind of a joke if you're a gym and you're not talking about nutrition. So we do have a nutrition, it's precision nutrition program. And we have, we only have like maybe 5 members in it right now. I'm actually in it too. I don't really count, so I would be the 6th, but it's small, but it's growing, and it's something, and it's better than not having it,
So for those that might not know, when you say ARM, what he's referring to is average revenue per member, right? So like, what is the average amount of dollars that the client is spending inside the walls of the business, not just their membership, right? So we've talked about this before too, there's a lot of ways to increase ARM, and everybody automatically assumes that you just have to raise the prices, which is not true at all. If you put a solid retail plan in place, you could raise your ARM $20, $25 a person just by doing that. And you don't have to touch the retail portion of that. So when you say you add nutrition, meaning you just added that as a premium service, or you've looped it in somewhere else?
It's a standalone premium service, and it's also offered to non-members. We have a separate price. You pay a little more if you're a non-member, but you have the option if you want it.
And then let me ask you, this is a little strategic as well. Are those non-members local to your gym? Are they virtuals, like out of state somewhere?
So when we did the nutrition seminar, we had a couple people come in that were local. We haven't had anybody outside of that. So that it's local for now.
Got it. So what's your plan to get them in the gym?
Just keep preaching the nutrition stuff and let them see those gains there. And once they start feeling good, we always are encouraging them to get in and do it. We don't want to be like preachy, like, hey, CrossFit's the best thing ever, or whatever. We kind of let people make that decision on their own, but we're just going to show you kind of how much fun we have, the things we do, the type of people we are. And hopefully that's enough to stick,
You guys do test in and test out workout with your nutrition clients?
Not yet, but we do like the weights and measurements, weigh them, take all their measurements. They do a pretty lengthy consult of like, what are your goals? Where are you going? What are you doing right now?
I think adding that in is a layup for conversion, right? Like, and it fits within the overarching scheme and theme of CrossFit, which is, if we think about the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum.
Yeah.
And I think about typically, if we're talking about this in the context of the level 1, typically what we're putting there in that lecture are biometrics, right? So, resting heart rate, blood pressure, body fat percentage. But we would also layer on fitness markers there too. And the goal is obviously to get them all to fit. So I think it's really useful to put like a test in workout and then have them test out, because it's not unreasonable for somebody to just work on their nutrition and test out better. Now, it's probably not going to be, incredible test out, but we all both know that if you do something simple like shed 15 pounds,
right,
that would lend itself to moving a little bit faster and being able to, at least lend itself to mathematically trying to produce higher power output. So I think that's a cool one, because we know that those two need to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like, and that's what we say in the lectures in level 1, which is like, hey, if you're not doing CrossFit or constantly varied function movements executed at high intensity while doing, nutrition, largely, eating meats, vegetables, nuts, seeds, little start, no sugar, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, well, then you're not doing CrossFit. Because our contention is you can't separate the two, because it's a lifestyle. So it's just like, you can exercise yourself all day long, but if you're going to eat cheesecake and Cheetos all day, then that doesn't count. Right. Like, Chris Glassman's famous for that quote, is like, you cannot work a shitty diet. Like, it's not going to work. So this is a really good opportunity to expose them to that and let them know that, like, this does have tremendous carryover. Oh, and by the way, we do that here as well.
I really like that idea. I'd never thought of that before, so I really like that.
You're welcome.
That'll be on the docket very soon.
There you go. So. What do you find to be the biggest hurdle at this point for you guys?
Probably just like staying focused on one thing. There's like so many things that you could be doing, and you just have to be like, no, I need to focus on this right now. And just learning when to delegate. Like, okay, I'm getting a little overwhelmed. There are 4 of us. You know what? I need to reach out to somebody else and say, hey, can you handle this? And every time I do, or one of us does, someone is willing to pick up that slack, and it's worked out really well. You just have to learn to do that.
I know somebody that can help you with all of those things. I'm just giving you a hard time. That is also a really sticky spot for affiliate owners. So like, I know there's a million things here to do, and a lot of people end up doing nothing because they get decision fatigue, and they're just like, I have no idea. And I'm terrified that if I start working on this, when I put in all this work, it's not going to yield anything because it might not be the right time. Which is a real fear. That's a real thing. You can absolutely do that. And so this is where I think it's helpful. And we talked about this on a recent podcast with regard to just an affiliate owners and like putting out fires all the time. It's just like line up all those things and establish which one of these is most important.
Yeah.
Like if somebody like locked you in a room and be like, you don't leave here until you pick one. Yeah. Pick one, work on that one, and then fix it, and then slide that one off, and then pick the next one. Like which one's the most important now? And it seems easy, but there's a lot of questions you get asked when you say what's most important. So like what's most important to what? Right? To the growth of the business, to the seamless nature of operations, to the coaching staff, to revenue. And this is where it can be a little bit of kind of the shell game or the cup game, which is like, hey, I know the answer's underneath those cups and I'm moving around a lot, but I fucking never know which cup it's underneath. and this is where I don't know that there is a right or there's a right answer, but I think it's unique to each business. Yeah. So like I'll work with people sometimes and I'm like, hey, we're going to take this over here, which is typically like the fifth thing that we do. And I'm moving it to number 2 because that is what needs to happen right now. Yeah. And we'll just acknowledge, hey, this is out of order. It is going to create a little bit of some problems here as we go through this, but the priority for your business is X, whether it be revenue or growth, or your priority is like these memberships are a disaster. We need to get those sorted out like very quickly. But typically, if I'm going to start from scratch and get all the time in the world, there's a pretty nice little template with like how I would lay those out so that everything makes sense. And when I finish one, that layers into number 2, and then that layers into number 3, and then all the pieces fit together very nicely. But that can be tricky. So I think it's one of those ones where you think is like, what does the business need? Yeah. And then I would prioritize based on that. Right. Because there's, and you guys have a unique scenario where there's 4 cooks in the kitchen, and that can lend itself to other problems, which is like everybody perceives the needs to be different. So it's like, how do I figure that out? So on that note, I have a separate question, which is, how do you guys go about decision making?
Just communicate basically. And really we, it sounds kind of goofy, but we have not had any like disagreements. We're all very much on the same page and we kind of laid out that vision. Bro. Yeah. We laid that out before we ever bought, though. Before we bought in, we all wanted to make sure everyone had the same vision, and we did, Honestly, whenever I talked to you last July, I started putting together the team because I knew I wanted to start this thing, and I started reading the books and started doing all my due diligence and getting everybody on board and kind of vision casting to the team so that when we did get our chance, we already were there. We already were on the same page.
If you were going to recommend one book to somebody who's considering doing this over the past year, what have you read and found to be most useful for you going through this process?
E-Myth. By far. E-Myth taught me so much about business structure and kind of if you're starting from the ground up, kind of how to do it. And I know it's not a specific gym book, but man, there's so many valuable nuggets in that book of just what to do and good guidance.
Is it the most recent version?
I got the E-Myth Revisited, I guess, which I think is the most recent version.
I'm pretty sure that he wrote, or there's like I don't want to say amended. I don't think it's the right word. It's not abridged either, but I think there's like a newer version. I have to go back and look, but because he has admitted that say, hey, it's like they're one of the I don't want to say misinterpretations, but misinterpretations of the book was that everybody was just like, I'm gonna move out of the business too soon, right? You guys are a little unique because you're kind of starting out of the business and kind of trying to move in, which is a unique scenario. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not unique to CrossFit, but it's like, it is a unique scenario in the business world. We have a fully functioning brick and mortar that you're really kind of on the outside and like marginally operating internally. And I think I made this mistake, and I know a lot of people, which is they tried to move to this, kind of, I guess the owner or on the business a little too early. Which is, man, if you just stayed in that frying pan a little bit longer, created a little bit more stability, this would have worked out better. Yeah. Have you guys figured out who is going to be the first one, or who would make the most sense of the four of you? So like as you grow the business, like who would you kind of like, who would leave their occupation? And obviously there's a lot of variables here, but like who would be the first person to leave their job and go ahead?
Yeah, we have. And we talked about that before we even opened as well. We do know, and that was already kind of laid out and discussed before we officially signed anything.
Who is it?
So that would be Julia. She wants to be kind of the general manager. She's very fit for that role. And she would be our first candidate to do that.
Nice. I like it. That's you mentioned something very important there, which is like she fits the role.
Yeah.
That is something that we harp on a lot in there, which is like, what's the job? Stick the right person in that job. Don't take somebody that you like and then give them a bunch of hodgepodge stuff. It usually won't work well. It won't match their strengths, and it hurts the business long term.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How about this, man? Give you some free money here, brother. Like, ask me, what do you got for me? What can I help you with?
So I guess for us right now, it's kind of like we're having a lot of fun. Our members see that. We are not sure as far as if we are trying to grow, does it make sense to advertise anywhere? And I don't mean Facebook or Instagram. I'm saying like billboards, radio. What makes sense? And now in today's market, if you're trying to get your name out there, aside from people who are just going to tell their friends, what's kind of the, another way to do it or another kind of avenue to take?
So I've got like a couple different answers here, but like practically speaking, in the scenario which the four of you are in, I would not lean towards spending more money, right? I want to keep as much capital in the business as humanly possible. So I would go through every free avenue humanly possible, which is like, obviously bring a friend week, make sure that the referral program is dialed in, reaching out to all your old members, right? Like I know you did that for initially, but like whatever that old mailing list looks like over, 2018. So let's call it, there's got to be at least 300 to 500 emails in there.
Yeah.
Right. So I would hit all of those up and I would offer them something and just see if you get any takers, because like you guys are in a unique scenario up there in the PA area where like people been in lockdown for a hot minute and are very inclined to take some help in some one of those scenarios. So like, just look at it like that. Those 500 people, let's shave off 60 of them, right? That are the drop-ins from somewhere else. Okay. So 440, cool. 440 people who you're not complete strangers to, who, let's just say that you got 1%. Okay. I'll take 5 people. I'll take 5 people off of that. Okay, cool. So now I'm at 77. Right. Just by sending out an email or designing a series of emails that isn't just a cold ask. You know what I mean? So I think it's always just like, take a look at like what you have at your disposal. And I'm not suggesting spam people with email. Right. But I would also acknowledge that like everybody has this weird thing now that like they think your email is off limits. It's just not. Like, it's not like your telephone number. That's different. Everybody's email is basically free game at this point. Like I get emails from things I've never signed up for, from people I don't give a shit about. And every day, and I unsubscribe for 3 straight years and they still ping me. Like, I just delete it. But shoot your shot there. Right. Yeah. And I think where that goes wrong is you're just getting an email that's an ask. Right? Like send an email that has value in it. Like they open it up and they're like, thanks for not being the turd who just wants to sell me some shit. Yeah. Right. Like, hey, thanks for these at-home workouts or this, quick food prep guide that you genned up that I've been sitting around in the house, like trying to figure out for the past 3 years how to do. Provide some value up front. And if you can design like a nice little series or something like that, like I think you would get some takers. And if you don't, oh, well, at least you put some good out into the world and at least gotten some goodwill with people, which I think is far more important. But I always start with like, what do you got? What do you have immediately available to you? And that's one of them. So the first one is obviously your member base. The second one is like old contacts that you can reach out to, but offer them something. You guys are new ownership, so you could do some sort of grand reopening type promotion and then just shout it from the hills on every social media platform for 4 to 6 weeks out in front of that. And then, go from there. So there's endless amounts of scenarios there. Now, with regard to the paid ads, That depends, man. Like I'm not really against anything. I just think that some of them have far less ROI than others.
Yeah.
Like I have a client here who runs a fairly large business, and he runs ads on the radio, and he gets like all sorts of traction off of those.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, like whatever. But I'm like, he spent like $600 for months of a 30-second spot on the radio, which if that's the deal, I'll probably take it.
Yeah.
Right. Because if I'm looking at how many times I'm going to get that run over and for the amount I'm going to spend on it, I mean, that's 2 to 3 boosts on Facebook, which we can guarantee are going to give you no return whatsoever.
Right.
Billboards, I'm still not a fan of billboards because nobody pays attention when they drive. So nobody's looking around. But radio might not be a bad idea, depending on what the deal looks like. What's the duration of the spot? How long is that going to run for? How many weeks or whatever? So I think you should look into a lot of those things. But I think you should be very careful about where you spend your money. But what I find far more often than not is like, it's not necessary. Like if you just started with what you have, you could get those 2 to 3 people every single month, and it wouldn't cost you a dime other than a little sweat equity.
Yeah. Yeah. I pretty much agree though. I mostly agree with that for sure.
What do you, what part, let me ask you this, what part do you disagree with?
I guess I do. There's a billboard in particular. There's a Globo gym just went up, and their billboard's in a great spot. I'm kind of jealous of it because it's right at a light that always seems to be red. So you're always just sitting there with nothing to do.
Well,
so that would be.
I'm not saying it's a bad
role,
but my only question is, what's it cost?
Yeah, I don't know. I never.
Right. So if you're like, hey, it's $5,000, I'm like, I'm out. Thanks.
Yeah, that's too much.
But if you're like, hey, it's $200 a month, I'm like, I might consider it for a couple months just to see what happens. But a lot of those things, they'll like try to rope you in. Like print ads are the worst.
Yeah.
Pay some egregious amount of money for nobody to ever to fucking flip to page 78 for a corner ad page, and you're just like, God, this is dumb. So yeah, it's worth discussing. Like if it's a steal, it's a steal.
Yeah.
Or like take a good deal where a good deal comes. It's not like I'm against billboards. Right. If you can steal a billboard, go ahead and put your logo on there. Like do it all day long.
Yeah.
Right. But typically that's not going to happen. However, I'm a fan of deals. Like if you can get a deal, take the deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, without a doubt.
Cool. What else, brother?
Just to mention another thing that our people wanted was like the professional programming. So it was being written in-house before and it was losing its luster. So we actually have gone with Ham Plan now, and I just found out today they got acquired by CrossFit. So I was like,
wait, can I say that out loud yet? I don't know.
Yeah.
So yes, like I told you guys, I've been telling you for a long time. You heard it here first. CrossFit's been doing a bunch of stuff in the background. Yeah. This happens to be one of them. So I don't know I quite literally have no idea what the inner workings of that looks like. However, Ham Plan, which is James, Austin, Spencer. Yep. James, Hope, Art, Austin, Elio, and Spencer Handle, all games athletes, all seminar staff member, all just straight up good dudes. They are now kind of running what CrossFit will be offering. I haven't looked through the details, so please don't quote me on this, but I believe it is free till the end of the year for a small cohort, and then it would be paid. But I would imagine it would probably be not only very in line with what they were producing before, but probably even a little bit better because now they have way more resources available to them. So if for those of you who are looking for programming that is written by people who know what they're doing, that is going to come with a lot of resources, probably full-blown lesson plans and videos and coaching tips of that nature.
Yeah.
It's available. So go to CrossFit. If you're an affiliate owner, check your email. They emailed you. Sometimes I'm not sure if they just send those to me. That's just me. That's just me thinking I'm special when I'm not. No, but I think it's cool. I was actually trying to watch the video earlier, but I kept getting interrupted. But so that is available. So now I don't know what that means if you're using Ham Plan currently, but I'm sure they'll let everybody know.
Well, they said not to expect much change other than it's going to be free. I do have to say their coach notes are above and beyond. They're great, especially with having new coaches. our coaches so much appreciate like the detail that their notes go into. If anyone is kind of lacking notes in their programming, this is going to be a great place to look. I really have to say.
Right. I think they are paying very close attention to what affiliates need and want. And I think there's a lot more of this kind of stuff coming down the pike. So just be on the lookout. So if that's what you guys are looking for, go no further. It will save you a lot of time. However, I'm going to stick with what I have kind of put out there recently. Consider it 80% done, and you should own the other 20%. Change some of those workouts, change some of the equipment, change some of the time domains, make it fit for your community, because as good as those guys are, and I consider them to be some of the great minds in programming, as good as they are not in your affiliate. So they're limited in their ability to deliver really, really optimal programming. What they're going to give you is a really nice skeleton, and you probably could use it blanket, but if you really wanted to put it over the top, consider 80% done. Yeah,
agreed. We supplement it with a little bit of extra stuff. We know what our people want, and we give them that. So
give the people what they want.
Right.
Also a retention tool. Well, listen, brother, I'm happy for you, bro. Like I'm excited what you guys are doing. It's cool that you guys have just been kind of tracking along and kind of implementing where you can. So a lot of stuff we've been putting out there, and I'm excited for your community, dude. Like I think it's stoked. And I think what you guys are doing is admirable. I think it's something that if you do it right and you put in the work, like you guys will, you will reap the rewards of it. Not just, monetarily, but just emotionally reap the rewards of that. So like, it's cool to see people do cool things. Which I'm excited for you. So thanks for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it. And if you guys are going through something similar, reach out. Happy to help you. Happy to chat with you. Happy to just let you pick our brains on what it is that you think you might be able to improve on better. Any last things for the listeners, brother?
Honestly, I mean, people that already listen already know the value that you guys deliver, but don't hesitate to reach out to those guys and, trust your gut with some of this stuff. If you think your affiliate, like trust your gut and do what you think you should do. And if this really is your passion, and maybe you were like me a year ago, you're considering buying an affiliate, Fern might tell you not to, but I would say do it. Do it. You got to do it. It's so worthwhile.
I'm always on the edge. I'm like, listen, I'm not saying don't, but I'm just like, listen, just put a little bit more thought into it. So
you do it the right way. Do your due diligence and do it the right way.
Hey, do that. Just do it better.
Right. There you go. Perfect.
Right. See you guys next time.
Thank you, Fern.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.